Here I am today under the Spanish 110. We're going to do the diff. Now I wasn't going to film this. Simple reason that I've got a Salisbury axle outside. I'm going to strip down completely and rebuild on the bench, which is a lot easier than doing it under the car. However, I really wanted to show you how useful those dummy bearings were that JP made me, because it's going to make setting up this diff so easy. Let's have a look. So there we are. I've just taken the cap off just to show you. There's the bearing in place. Now these are exactly 1 inch diameter. We're going to use inches because this was made in the it works off US Dana 60. Now I did try originally a set of shims, one for this side and one for this side, that was the same size as we took out. They actually got a little bit bent, the original ones, because you have to put a tool, a puller, to pull the bearings off. Well, that made a real mess of the shims. So we came up with this idea of making dummy bearings, and fortunately on the Timken website, and I'll put a link below in the description, they give you all the dimensions of this bearing, and most importantly it said that the thickness is exactly 1 inch. That's good, and so JP could work out the diameter and also the internal diameter. He made it a little bit larger so the diff would move around. So this is the setup. We know that this is damaged and it's a bit buggered, but it doesn't matter, it's just the casing. Now I've already done the pinion. I jumped the gun a bit, but I thought this might be interesting to see the bearings. So what I've got here is I've got a dial gauge. I've set to 0. It's really sensitive. See if you will. There. Okay, so this diff now is pushed fully this way. All right. I hope you can see. Let's see if we can do a zoom, a little bit more of a zoom. That's it. So now I'm going to get a bar, and I'm going to push the differential to the other side, like that. Look, let's make sure it's gone across. That's it. 59 thousandths of an inch. Now, we can call it 60 for the simple reason that the shims only come in 5,000 of an inch increments. Now it's asking for a little bit of a preload of 5 thousandths, so we're looking for 65 thousandths of an inch. Now what we have to do is, let's for argument's sake, let's call this 60, alright? So what we need now is a shim putting in here and in here of 30 thousandths either side, so that we can make this into the centre, alright? Like, oh, a bit too much. This is only playing around. Like Grace Jones, she was just playing around. Oh, wrong way. 28. Can I get 2,000? 35. No, wait a minute. Let's give it a tap. 29. 30. How's that? So, if I put some shims in there to 30 thou either side, the diff will be spot in the centre, and then if I try and add a 5 thou shim, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Now that means that the diff, the preloads on the bearings should be, should be sorted out, if you see what I mean. But that's the diff in the centre, but it doesn't mean that the diff is in the right place. Aha! Because once we've established the shim thickness, and this is why these diffs are a bit of a bugger to do, you've got to work out the backlash. Now this will move a little bit. See there? There's backlash on those teeth. Now what we've got to do is rearrange our dial gauge onto a tooth and work out the lift, and we'll come to that later. But what we have to do to get the correct tooth contact between these teeth and the pinion, we have to move this diff a little bit closer or a little bit further away from the pinion. How do we do that? Well, all we simply do is take, if we want it closer this way, we take a shim out of here and we put it into here. We don't alter the set shims, if you see what I mean. So if we've got 30 either side and we need a little bit more this way, we'll take a shim out of here of 5 thou and put it into here. So we'll have 35 thou at this side and 25 thou at this side. Does that make sense? I should do. And then we can gradually move this across and get the correct contact. But without those bearings, well, I don't want it to drop out, but you can see, you can actually move it by hand. There, you can see it moving. Oh, it's easy with a bar. So what I'm going to do, I know now it's, so what I'll do is I'll put, I've got some 10 thou shims and I've got some 5 thou shims. So I'll put 2 10s in and 2 5s either side, and then we can take it from there. It's going to be a lot of fun, eh? But it saves, see how much easier it is. I mean, if I put the cap back on, you will see the clearances of the tolerances. Wait a minute, I'll just stop this video here. Now if we concentrate on this, I've just put the cap back on. And this is how precise the horn on the inside of that bearing is there, you know, the dummy bearing. So we can actually move that backwards and forwards a little bit. You can see there, look. But the cap's pretty loose. If I just put a little bit of tension on that, on those bolts, look, just the weight of the bar, it's getting tight. Look, pull it down a little bit. And that's really tight now. It's still working out nice, but you can't torque it down because it'll crush that dummy bearing. So we've just got it about right. So I'm going to take that apart now, make some shims, find a shim set, and then we'll put it back in and find out if we've got any play in it, you know, by the dial gauge. Clever, isn't it? So I've taken the clamp off, and I'm just having a look at the backlash on this crown wheel. Now I've got it set there to 0 almost. It's 15. It's 15 thou. Now it's supposed to be 10. So what I'm thinking of, if I was to just gingerly move that across so we can get 10. Let's have a look. So we'll 0 that. Well, that's 9. It's close enough, isn't it? So we need to put a little shim in here and then quite a few shims in here. So let me put the gauge back onto here. So bear in mind that's the position it wants to be in. So I think we can do this in one fell swoop. Let me move. So I put 8 in here and 20 in here. I haven't got the clamp on. I don't know if you can see the gauge very well, but 0, 10. Spot on, apart from that one. Yeah, believe me, it's 10. It isn't much. So now what, we'll check our float. We'll take this off of your back. God, it's a good magnet, that. Bloody hell. We'll check our end float. Yeah, I was just saying to Jerry there, I think what they've done when they've given us these shims, I think I haven't got any 3s. I might have, I don't know, but they seem to be all over the place. Yeah, so there we are. I mean, we haven't got the actual bearings in, we're just turning on the surface of the dummy bearings, but we have got a nice contact tooth right in the middle. Nice positive contact, so I think we're alright. I think we're ready to put the actual bearings in. Oh dear me. Well, let's do it here. Now there is a little bit, you know, like I said, but there's no oil in there. So once it gets oiling, I think it'll be nice and quiet, and you can turn it quite easy by hand. You know, it'll turn kind of easy. Yeah, so let's take this out and have a look at putting the bearings on. So the bearings are pressed on, and it's exactly the same as it was before. So this is good. Now it does sound a bit knocky, but there's no oil in it, there's nothing in it, and it does move, but there's no play left and right. That's pretty good. I'm pleased at that. So I've got to tighten down the caps. I'll put a bit of Loctite on it, gasket on, then we'll see what it's like. We've got to put the half shafts in, and then that is done. So much easier to do on the bench than here. Lifting that in and out, it's like a bit of a workout, you know. I'm kind of pleased with it. I'm pleased with the idea, because the thought of pulling them shims, them bearings on and off and on and off is just, I don't know, it's outrageous really. But I think it'll be alright. Well, I know it's going to be alright. One of the things I'm going to try, because this box had, this differential had shavings in it, because I think the bearing had collapsed. That was going to say, when I did the front pinion bearing, I noticed it was a Japanese bearing, not a Timken one. So I think what's happened is somebody's over tightened the crush sleeve. You know, they didn't realise, they've changed the seal, didn't realise there was a crush seal in it, just changed the seal and wrapped it up with a windy gun, and then I think the bearing was too stressed at the front and just collapsed. I think that must have been it. And then once that had gone, it was banging in and out. So I think somebody's changed the bearings, but they didn't change these, the carrier bearings, so I don't know. But what I was going to say was the plug, the oil plug, or drain plug, I've got one off the later LT230 transmission, which had a magnet in it. So I'm going to put that in there, and we'll drive it around for a bit, make sure it's all settled down, and then make sure there's any metal particles get stuck to the magnet. Well, that's the theory. Anyway, I hope you like that. It's one way to fill in a Saturday morning, isn't it? But like I say, doing it on the car is a pain. So we'll do another one. The one that axle's outside, we'll do it on the bench, and we'll even do the pinion bearings. But generally speaking, from what I've been chatting with people, is that if you're just going to replace the bearings, keep the shims. There's no need to change them. They are quite tight, so you know, if you've got worn bearings, you can keep the original shims, but it's really important to keep them in the right side, left and right, because it is important to get that mesh correct, if you see what I mean. Anyway, less of this rambling on. Let's go and get some lunch. Right. Back after lunch, I thought I'd add this little bit on, and I've topped up the oil, put the gasket things on and whatever you need to do. But I'm going to duck down a bit, and I'm going to hopefully, I don't know if it's going to work or not, keep your eye on the tyre here, the tyre there, and this prop, and see what happens. Wait a minute, see if I can get it. There, how's that? There's hardly any play in it at all. Look at that, it's beautiful. Especially, I think you can see this tyre turn more in relation to how much I'm turning the prop. Now if you remember before, it was like quarter of a turn and it was clunky. I think it's sorted now. I'm really pleased with it. It is a bit of a mess about, I must admit, but I want to show you something really important. We're going to go to the bench and I'll tell you something about the shims. So the shims, there is a problem. If you use a puller to pull off the shims, the old shims, they invariably get damaged, like that. I've got some other ones here, like this one here, look, it got pretty mangled up. So don't expect to use the old ones. I bought some packets of Britpart shims. There was 10 in a packet, and they come in 4 different sizes. How have we got? Number 88 is supposed to be a 3. 607188, 601, 89, 90 and 91. But this is the problem. This is, I'll put a little link up here to this page, and you can stop it if you wish and write these numbers down. But the shims come in 3, 5, 10 and 30. I've got my old trusty micrometer here, and there it is, set spot on at 0. We're going to measure a shim at random. There you go. Now these are supposed to be 3/1000th of an inch. I don't know what it is in metric. Some I don't know. Anyway, let's have a go. Well, if you can read a micrometer, but that's the setting. It's actually 6.5/1000th of an inch, 6.5/1000th of an inch. It's not 3. We look at the 5s. Well, again, we'll pick one out at random. These are all made in India, by the way. These are actually 11, 12, these are actually 13. Oh, wait a minute, there was 2 together there. I tell a lie, there was 2 together. Let's do that again. So the 5, I think they put them in the same packet. The 5 is actually 6.5. If you can see that. 6.5 for the 5s. The 10 is supposed to be 10,000th of an inch. Let's have a measure. That is actually 10. Alright, so the 10s are 10. That's good. And the 30s are 31. So if you're trying to calculate your shims, you really need a micrometer and sort of do them in a lump rather than think, well, I need a 5 or 3 or something, because that's what confused me with this video. You know, like, you know, you get, let me get a selection here. These are the old ones, but if you get a selection of shims that you think that's the right size and you put your micrometer onto them, you should get a decent number, if you see what I mean. But you'll get a number that's actually greater if you use the Britpart ones, because they're nowhere near. You know, they're actually larger. It's kind of confusing. I didn't realise until I was sort of putting it together, because, you know, when I was moving the diff backwards and forwards, I said, oh, I need 8 in this side and 20 in this side. Or at the very beginning I needed, what was it, 30-30, then I decided it was 25-35. So I was going off the part numbers and it was a bit wrong, so I had to cut a lot of this out of the video, got the micrometer out and actually measured them and found out they were a bloody mile off. You could still work it out, but if you think you're going to get a 3/1000th of an inch shim, you're not. It's a pain, because you really sometimes need that little bit. But anyway, it turned out quite nice, like George Formby turned out nice again. But we'll do another video on the shims and shimming up the diffs, because it is worth it, I think, in the long run, to get all that knocky noise out of it, because there was a bad bearing in that diff, as we saw in a previous video. I'm sorry, I forgot to put it in, but anyway. There was a bad bearing, and yeah, there was other bits and pieces. Oh, the carrier, the centre the centre gears the shims on those, they were all over the place. Now somebody once did write in a comment to say that they only use genuine Land Rover shims, and I can understand why, because these are awful. I could actually get JP to take these down to the correct size. Oh, man, it's, you know, it's a long, well, it's not a long job. You can put it on a surface grinder and get these to actually 3,000th of an inch, so we've got something to work on. But it takes a long time. Anyway, I was pleased with the I've got a bit of dirt on there. I'll show you the other side. I was really pleased with these dummy bearings. They help tremendously, because if you've got to pull the bearings on and off to put the shims behind, you're invariably going to damage them, like I did on here with a puller trying to get them off. So just beware. So what I'm going to say to you is this. As I mentioned in the video, I think I did. I've edited so much out of it, it's unbelievable. If you sort of just going to replace the bearings, remove the diff, change the bearings, and keep the original shims in the approximate, you know, the appropriate side, not approximate, appropriate side, and then it should all go back together again. And it should be the same for the pinion. If you change the pinion bearing, you should keep the shims as original. But the thing is, you don't want to damage them. That's the catch. It's like catch 22. So I don't know. I mean, these shims comes in packs of 10. They're not the cheapest of shims, and I don't know how much they are from Land Rover, but it could be quite expensive. I don't know. Is it worth it? I think so. I think so, to get rid of that clonk banging away. Make a nice, smoother, comfortable ride. A lot of people ride the clutch, if you see what I mean, and try to take that knock out. And yeah, you can do, but it's still knocky, isn't it? And I mean, the car's done a lot of kilometres, plus it was damaged before, so I think it was well worth doing. How much did it cost to do? I think with the parts, shipping, import duties and things like this, I think it was around about $200 to do, Canadian. It wasn't too bad. They're obviously cheaper in Angleterre. But JP did me these. I had to buy the steel. That was $50 for a piece of one piece of steel, and he turned it down, and he charged me $50 to make them, because you know it's a bit of time surface grinding. And one thing he said to me, he said when he was doing the honing and the turning, you had to let them cool down before you could actually hone them, because with the expansion of the heat, he would put the sizes out. So you know, he charged me $50 for making two, but I've got them on the shelf now. Well, not on the shelf, but in the toolbox. So if I want to do another differential like we'll do later, it's going to be a dream. See you later.